Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have a unique and fascinating person on the show today, Matt George, the nonprofit prophet, who's also an executive leadership coach for Harvard Business School. He's the president of Big Brand Ventures, which includes one of the original sharks from Shark Tank, an author, a speaker, TV host. Super excited to get into this and someone with unique experience merging nonprofits and a CEO for over 30 years. So, Matt, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love your show, by the way. So great job. I
Well,
do.
oh, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I mean you're with your introduction. There's a lot there, so maybe let's kick it off with just kind of your origin story and talk a little bit about the things
Yeah.
you've done over time and get a little framework for who you are.
Yeah. I think people, first of all, profit piece. I was with Kevin Harrington one day. You mentioned he was the original shark on the hit TV show Shark Tank, and we were actually playing in a golf tournament one day for charity, and we're driving along. This was about 6, 7 years ago, and he looks over at me and he says, I always talk about you as CEO, but I need to come up with a name for you. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, I had no clue what he was talking about. And he said, give me 24 hours. I'm going to come up with a name. So he drops me off. 10 minutes later, he drops me off at my hotel and he says, you're the nonprofit prophet. And so it just stuck. In 10 minutes, he came up with that. I thought that was kind of funny. And no, but anyway, nonprofit's been part of my life. Taking care of communities, taking care of people's really been what I wake up every day for. It was my whole career and really still is. I still love talking about it. I love mentoring younger kids and people that want to get into the business. But it started with me at age 16. I had a friend of mine that actually passed from cancer, and I was blown away. I didn't know the feeling of death of someone close to you, and I played tennis at the time, and I thought, I could raise money playing tennis somehow. And so I did this little I was in high school. I did this little fundraiser, and it raised $3,500 for his family. And
Huh.
and what I was trying to do, his family didn't have a lot of money, and I was trying to pay for the funeral costs because I actually remember thinking to myself, here you've got your parents, and you lose a child, and then you have to pay for a funeral, and it didn't make sense to me at the time. It kind of still doesn't, but it doesn't make sense to me at the time, and I felt so bad, so I raised money, and then that, little did I know, that was the beginning of my journey. 2 years later, the great sweetness, Walter Payton,
Oh,
my favorite football player ever, actually helped me and propelled me to raise even more money at the age of 19. And we went from there on. It was just, let's just raise money and do good in communities across the country.
that's amazing. So, how did you meet Walter Payton?
Well, it's a crazy story, actually. I was, back in 88, 89, there's no cell phones. And so
Right.
I live in Illinois, and the Bears are my favorite team. And I just kept leaving messages on his answering machine at the foundation. And he had a foundation on Golf Road in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I left 13 messages. The only reason I remember that is because one day I pick up the phone and he says, is Matt George there? And I said, this is him. You've called me 13 times. What do you want? And I told him my age, and he thought that was funny, and he invited me to go to meet him in his office. And 6 months later, he's doing a fundraiser for me. I sold out 400 people. We raised a ton of money, and I got to befriend Walter Payton, my hero, and it was the kickstart of what ended up raising millions over the years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a fun story.
The power of young persistence, right?
That's right. That's right. I knew I wanted them.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how did you get it? How did you meet our fellow shark from Shark Tank? How did that come to be? I mean, you said at the golf was at that golf tournament? Is that where you first met, or you guys were
No,
just talking there?
I saw him. I think there's a lesson here for our listeners because I get asked all the time about, especially from people that are. I was just in an airport in Denver a couple days ago, and I'm talking to a young guy, and he's probably 30 years old. He works for a big bank in the United States, and he says, um, what what do being at Harvard, and we had this discussion, being at Harvard, how do you find mentors?
Hmm.
And I said, it's a great question. And we went into how, and then what I said was, you just have to ask. You
Right.
have to identify, but you have to ask. And I said, I've had the CEO of Caterpillar and Maui Jim Sunglasses and Kevin Harrington and Mark Victor Hansen, who was one of the founders of Chicken Soup for the Soul. I mean, they're all mentors of mine. They still
Yeah.
are. And but with Kevin, I was watching him speak at a conference once, and he was talking about, you're talking about somebody who was part of Ginsu Knives, the George Foreman Grill. He was the brand behind Celsius, the drink. He's with the Kardashians and things like that. And I was watching him, and then all of a sudden, he leaves, and I'm like, I'm gonna go catch him. And I did, and I went, and he tried to sneak out. I caught him. And the short of it is he said, "Hey, is there any chance that we could talk, another time?" And I was just trying to pick his brain, and I said, "I'd love to talk to you." And he goes, "I'll call you in 2 hours." 2 hours later, I didn't think he'd call me. 2 hours later, he called me.
Huh.
And 3 months later, I'm at in Tampa meeting him, and he becomes a mentor. And he says, "Matt, first thing you're going to do is you're going to write a book." And so I wrote a book, Nonprofit Game, all because he pushed me to write it. It became a bestseller, and he wrote the forward in the book. And in the forward in the book, he actually talks about how we met, the story I just told.
Really?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. But my whole point there is a lot of times people think that you can't ask people.
Right.
And the worst thing that can happen is they blow you off or say no.
That's exactly right.
I mean, who cares, right?
Right. Right.
I mean,
You're no worse off at all.
right. Who cares? So anyway, it's a fun story.
That's incredible. How about being a executive leadership coach at the Harvard Business School? How did that come to be?
Well, I was winding down my career at Children's Home, and I'd been there many years and been in the nonprofit business many years, and I had an opportunity to interview at Harvard Business School, and I was talking to the head of Harvard Business School, and she was, this is really an interesting background with the nonprofit. We really don't have a lot of people with nonprofits. And so we have an exec ed program. They teach entrepreneurs, Fortune 500, business owners. I don't do anything with undergrad at Harvard. It's
Uh-huh.
really just exec ed. And next thing you know, I was blessed to get the position, and I have a lot of fun with it. I mean, this is my third year now, and half of it's online and the other half of it's in person. So last year alone, I was in Boston 23 times.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it becomes addicting in a way
For
because
sure.
I always, as I was stepping down, I was always thinking to myself, how am I going to stay on top of my game? Like, how am I going to? I'm a reader. I watch podcasts. I listen. I do all those things that I think you do too. But at
Yes.
the same time, I need to stay on top of my game. I need to be sharp.
Hmm.
And so now I have insights to global entrepreneurs, global Fortune 500, curriculum like you've never seen. And I get to be around other coaches from all over the world too, that are some of the top business coaches around. And so HBS is special. It's cool. It is what you hear about. It is
Sure.
that. Um, I know I sound like maybe a commercial form right now, but I will tell you, it does not disappoint.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Maybe chat about your nonprofit career, how you started in that, and then how you grew and kind of through your M&A activity, because that's an interesting piece in the nonprofit space.
Yeah. It's I started, like I had said earlier, in fundraising, but I didn't know what that meant. And then as my cousin was an NFL quarterback, Jeff George was his
Huh.
name, and we were roommates at Illinois, and I started his foundation, and so that's really where I got my official start. That's why I say I never had a job outside of CEO, because
Huh.
at age 22, I started working as Jeff's CEO of his foundation, and got to work with all the top quarterbacks in the league and the top players and
Yeah.
teams and so on. And we raised money for child abuse and breast cancer. And
Okay.
in doing so, we got to see all over the country some pretty tough things. And it ticked me off. It'd be like, why is this happening, or why is this happening? And what became of that is, as I was growing and getting older, and his career was winding down. I mean, he played a total of 14 years. We probably had a good 10-year run.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
but about age 30, I knew I had to grow up. I had to stop going to Super Bowls and stop going and doing all the fun stuff and actually start monetizing. And so that's when really my life changed. That's when I got mentors. That's when I moved back to Peoria, Illinois, which
Okay.
is I love Peoria, Illinois, and it's uh, good Midwestern town, Midwestern roots, good
Uh-huh.
companies here. And I was like, I'll just see what it's like to be here for a few years, and 25 years later, I'm still here with my family and having a good time. But at the same time, I took over a place called Youth, and it was a boys' home basically. And what they had 56 employees at the time, and they had Youth Farm had about a $4 million budget, and about I reorganized the whole business. And I always looked at nonprofits as businesses. I never looked at them as handouts. And knowing that I was a fundraiser, I went in and reorganized. Um, I utilized my board, which a lot of times nonprofits struggle with boards. And what I ended up doing was, I realized 3 or 4 years into it that the sustainability of this business is it's going to be tough moving forward with the climate that we're in. And so I started exploring a merger. And I guess where I didn't 100% did not do this on purpose, but I got a lot of pats on the back and kudos for merging Youth Farm into a big children's home, but I lost my job. And
Huh.
because there was another CEO, and I knew I was going to lose my job, but I never thought, like, I'm not going to say I didn't care, but I was confident enough that I was going to go do something else.
Sure, sure.
But it was the right thing for the community, the kids, and the business. And but that's not how the donors and legislators and everybody in the state thought. They thought,
Huh.
wow, this guy gave up his job. And that's really was the first merger. And then come full circle, I ended up being the CEO of that children's home in the last, decade of my career.
Okay.
And in between that, I took a cancer center and a health center and an education center, and they were all smaller nonprofits. They're in that, couple $1 million range. And I'm like, this is silly. We have three CEOs, we have three of this person and this
Huh.
person. And I was like, we can do more for this community. And, I merged everything together, and with the blessing of some CEOs and some boards and some donors, and I became the CEO of that company, and spent about 5 or 6 years just merging them, making them stable before I went on to Children's Home.
Okay.
And at Children's Home, you're talking about an agency had been around for 156 years at the time I stepped down. And so they're already established. And so one of the things that my team did is we said, all right, we're going to scale to make more impact. And so my whole C-suite team, I felt like we were on the same page. Not all the time because it was a business of crisis.
Sure, sure.
Like every 5 minutes, something tough would happen. But you started managing in crisis all the time, and it became kind of an exhilarating experience. And crisis management and really just trying to better communities and better your team and change lives and so that's what we ended up doing and I was going to step down. I'd written this book and was going to step down. I was touring with Kevin. I was opening up
Okay.
speeches with him and then COVID came
Hmm.
and Kevin and I both took a step back and I learned more during COVID probably than any time in my life because not only did I go back to children's home and really just say, okay, I've got to go all in, which I thought was going to be about 3 to 6 months. It ended up being about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then Kevin reinvented himself too, like everybody else had to. They had to figure out how, if he was doing 50 appearances and speeches a year. So that was his business, was speaking.
Uh-huh.
And so how do reorganize yourself and kind of press start over? And we went on that journey together and we helped each other and he helped me a ton and then when COVID was over I stepped down and I stepped down with my team. We had an endowment of $35 million. We had a budget hovering over 30 some million. We had 1,700 kids a month flow through our agency. We had 500 employees. We were big business in a
Yes.
nonprofit world. So it was a fun time, and I love talking about it still. I love Children's Home. I love my community, and I love my team. The team piece is huge.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So how, as you were going through all those iterations and building teams, what's been your philosophy, or how has your leadership philosophy definition evolved over time?
Yeah, John Maxwell's one of my
Yeah.
all-time idols.
Uh-huh.
I'm certified in Maxwell coaching and he's a mentor of mine and he's written 89 books and I think I've read each of them and I've read some multiple times. I told John I was with him a couple months ago and I told him I said um, I don't think anybody's ever purchased more books of yours than me and what I used to do at Children's Home is I'd have a whole bookcase and I'd go buy 50 books or 80 books, whatever it is, and I'd put them, they're all John Maxwell empowerment books. And I was a guy and I write a lot of handwritten notes to people. And I would write to my team, I'm very proud. I heard you did this, or I heard you did this, or I saw something. I wanted you to know I appreciate you. And I gave out books all the time with a handwritten note in them. They're always Maxwell books.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was a very important piece to how I manage, which is I copy him. It's servant leadership.
Yes.
It's talking about people first. It's high road leadership, which happens to be the
Uh-huh.
name of his new book.
Right,
But
right.
you can go low road, but high road is the top, and high road's leaving ego at the side. And I think, sometimes I have to check myself, even in talking to you right now, because a lot of it's name dropping stuff, and I realize that. But I've had a blessed career to where I was able to get in front of the right people, make the ask, have them say yes, and then leverage it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a very important piece when I go back to my story about the kid in Denver just a couple days ago is identify 3 people you think are untouchable and have one of them mentor you. And
Yes.
that's your goal. So he's already connected with me on LinkedIn. I'm already challenging him. And so I think he somehow our paths crossed at the Denver airport. I don't even remember how it happened. He just started talking to me. And I think that's being an aggressive thinker and taking risks. That was a risk for him. It's not
Uh-huh.
a risk for me.
Right.
And so I think that is something that when you talk about teams, I let teams make decisions. I let uh, uh, teams try to bond and mold the best of their ability. But at the same time, as a CEO, you're trying to establish culture. So what happened with COVID was hard because you spend time getting people out of silos, and then COVID put people back in silos,
Yes.
right? And so how do you know you're not going to change it right away, and you don't know if COVID's coming back, and there are so many different unknowns. And so now I had to figure out, how do you keep people in silos? And you've been talking against it for 10 years. How
Uh-huh.
do you manage that way? And the bottom line is, it's just having good people around you. I had good COOs and good CFOs and good clinical and good, IT and maintenance and you name it. And so you have to keep improving. If those people aren't performing, you have to get people in there that can. And sometimes those businesses scale so much that it passes up certain people. So
Absolutely.
you have to get other people in there. And you have to realize that and make the tough call. So probably one of the toughest things as a CEO and building a team is knowing you have to make decisions to sometimes make change on your team.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't ever afraid to make that decision. But at the same time, as a servant leader, you're empathetic, right? And
Yeah.
you're sympathetic. So I would always tell my team, you need to have, I really don't want to work, I don't want to be on your team, I would say, and vice versa. If you don't have passion for the job and compassion for each other. And if you don't, we're not going to work together.
Yeah.
So HR never liked me saying that, but I would tell new employees that right at the beginning. It was just a nice level set. I'd say, here's the deal. Go work at the mall. Go do something else. I don't have time for it. And either
Yeah.
do these kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's very, very good. And going back to the gentleman in the airport, I mean, a powerful lesson to identify three untouchable people or who you think are untouchable and make one of them your mentor. That's a fantastic strategy and advice.
Yeah, there's the former CEO of Caterpillar. I told when I asked him, he said, of course. And he didn't even think about it.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't know what that, he gets asked a lot of things, right? And so we were having lunch one day, and I said, as we were walking down the hallway, and we ate, here's the CEO of Caterpillar, and he's eating with everybody, and he was one of the people,
Uh-huh.
and I always liked that about him. And his name was Doug Oberhelman, and we were sitting there one day, and we were talking, and I asked him, I said, how do you, like, when everyone says hi to you and everyone knows you and you've got thousands of employees all over the world, um, how do you manage access to you? Like,
Great question.
it's crazy. I could not, because I had access to him. And he said, I never said no to anybody because, but I would manage my time. So
Sure.
if I didn't have time for you, I'd say yes, I'd help you, and I'd find someone within CAT to help you, or a friend or
Uh-huh.
whatever. I just happen to have time, and I know what you do for the community, so I'm going to give you time.
Yes.
And I thought that was just brilliant the way he said it. But what was interesting is, and I still think about this, I think about access. And so I talk to my current team now. I talk to them all the time because I'm now one of the older guys.
Uh-huh.
I'm 54 years old, and I know that's not old, but for the team that I'm on now with Big Brand Ventures, Kevin Harrington and I are the oldest guys on the team.
Okay.
So I talk to the rest of the team, and I always say to them, you have to limit or understand accessibility, because accessibility is what drives your productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm sitting here doing 6, 7 podcasts a day,
Yeah.
what am I really achieving other than helping my brand and helping maybe someone else on the other side fill a slot? I know
Sure.
that's not how you think of it, but
Yeah.
there is something to that, right? And so I think access is an important word for a lot of people, a lot of listeners, especially in leadership positions. What access do you have? And I've had this conversations with a lot of leaders. And so after that conversation with Doug Overhelm about this was pre-COVID, 5, 6 years ago, it really woke me up to access. And so each year I focus on one word personally. This year was perseverance. I've had resilience the
Uh-huh.
year before, and it was because I was changing my time. Changing my career. The first year was grit.
Uh-huh.
And so when you look at these words, they're all kind of the same because I was in that mode. My my word this last year is access.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I haven't decided what my 2025 word is, but access I think is an important word for a leader and a CEO or accessibility.
So if access was your word this year, how did you use that as the frame? Was it I'm going to provide more access? I'm just going to be more mindful of the access I provide. How have you thought about access
Yeah,
throughout the
I
year?
think I think all of the above. It's really just there's two people that really drove me on this one. Kind of famous people. So Adam Grant wrote the book Give or Take.
Uh-huh.
So the Give and Take book I read back to back. Like I read it, I finished it, I started again and read it.
Yes.
And Adam Grant's a Harvard professor. And Adam talks about being a giver and a taker and the disadvantages and advantages of each. And I'm a giver,
Uh-huh.
and which includes giving my time. All right. But the guy that really woke me up to this is Dan Martell. And Dan Martell he was speaking with John Maxwell, or Dan was speaking for John Maxwell at one of his things. And he was talking about his book, which is Buy Back Your Time.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's a very #1 best-selling book. And afterwards, I went up to Dan and I'm talking to him, and it's really um, access to your time. And I
Mm.
thought that is brilliant. I said, I probably, if you did a self audit of yourself and your time, like a time study, if you did that, how much are you wasting a day? And at one time of just saying yes, the give or take, being a giver,
Uh-huh.
I was giving 2.5 hours a day just a year ago. All right. So if think about that, 2.5 hours a day. That's 12 and a half. That's 25. That's 50 hours a month that I was giving away. And I
Uh-huh.
have 5 kids. I
Oh,
have
wow.
five
God bless you.
kids.
That's
I'm
amazing.
married. I've got, all this. I'm busy and I'm giving away 50 hours. So I started taking back some of my time. And it's been actually pretty nice because I I've turned down 13 board asks. Matt, will you be on this board? Or will you be on this committee?
Uh-huh.
And in the past, I'd say yes. And then I'd juggle it. And right now I'm saying no. And I think that's actually good for my mind because I'm sharper in the other things that I'm doing and concentrating on building my business now and getting to a point to where I want to go say yes again. I'm not there yet because my ultimate goal, one of my mentors, Art Mortell. If you Google Art Mortell, you ought to have him on as a guest. He's 84 years old. He's written 8 books. One of the very popular guys, speaker back in the 80s and 90s, leadership guru. And Art always talks about giving back more than you received.
Uh-huh.
And he's at a point in his life and his career where he's given back more than he's received, and that's his goal. And so it's kind of cool. So I've kind of taken that piece on. How can I get to a point in my life where I give back more than I receive?
Yeah.
So like one of the things with Kevin Harrington right now that we've just now established is Kevin's Foundation.
Okay.
So what we're doing is I started his foundation 50% of entrepreneurship for youth and 50% for veterans. And
Okay.
so now his when he goes out
Hmm.
and talks, and we were just in Nashville and Tampa this last week, we're talking about the foundation and giving back more than he received. So it's fun right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about big brand ventures and what exactly that is and what you guys have put together.
Yeah, Kevin Harrington and his son Brian had a business for a long time, and it's digital marketing, and they work with products. They have shark events, and they have different fun events. Then there's another guy, Brandon T. Adams, and Brandon is one of the, I don't know, hippest slash young guns and entrepreneurs. He just has it, and and Brandon and Kevin became partners. And Brandon, he has lofty goals. His goal is to become a shark, and so he wants to do that. So we're all sitting around together, Brandon and Brian and Kevin and myself, and we were sitting there one day about 6, 8 months ago, and we said, we all have our own businesses. Why don't we merge our businesses into one? So what does that look like? And so on my side, I have books. Kevin has books. Brandon has books. We said, all right, podcasts, TV shows, all of that. Then we have the digital marketing, and we have the advertising, and we have scaling businesses. Okay, we all kind of do that. Then over on the other side is advisory, and advisory is business coaching. It's what I do. So that's kind of my arm. And then I said, why don't we start doing philanthropic? And one
Uh-huh.
of the things that I wanted to focus on philanthropic, and we are focusing on, is how can we take nonprofits and scale them and show them how to scale to benefit communities.
Yes.
Because my whole goal in life is I'm getting sick of seeing all of this crap going on in communities, whether it's homelessness and violence. We know poverty's not going away. I get sick of hearing about drugs and alcohol. It's not just that, it's vaping. It's all of these different
Yes.
things that are
Yes.
happening to these kids. We have to be better role models. So the philanthropic arm is going to be, how do we help nonprofits scale to become sustainable long term in your community to make your community better? So at the end of last year, I went on a 61 city tour in 67 days. I went on a book tour. And for those 3 months, what my whole goal in doing that was, I was challenged by Chicken Soup's Mark Victor Hansen and Kevin. I was challenged with going into each city across the country and doing a deep into their nonprofits, doing a deep dive into what their pain points are in their communities. And I saw tough things. Like I saw tent cities and homeless communities in Austin, Texas. I was in O Block, walking the streets of O Block in Chicago with Pastor
Wow.
Corey Brooks, who he's the pastor on the roof, and you're talking one of the toughest areas in the country. And how can we, not just him, how can we make change? And in Boston and LA and you name it, we went all over. And my whole goal was, I was charged with leaving people with the mindset of they can be their own nonprofit profit in their own community. You have to make change. And if you don't make change, your communities are going to you know go by the wayside. And we're seeing that with some of the stuff that we're seeing right now. And I'm not going to get political, but homelessness is up 11, 12%.
Uh-huh.
That should not happen. We're the United States of
Right.
America.
I know.
And so when kids are sitting there, and even in my hometown, there's kids that are sitting there that wake up and have no food. They have no
Mm.
clothes. They're lucky to have a parent. if they have a parent.
Hmm.
There's homeless youth. There's all this stuff going on. No, I don't accept that. And so part of Big Brand Ventures is how can we take this philanthropic arm and let us help you, and then you make the change in your community to do good.
That's fantastic.
You got me fired up on that one.
Yeah, yes.
That one is one that's close to my heart.
Yeah, I can tell.
But we have a great team. Like Brandon he just had a big event in Nashville called Rise and Record and had some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship, and it's a really cool event. And I was with Kevin the week before, and we've got some fun collaborations going with other nonprofits, and but we also work with products, and
Uh-huh.
we hear pitches, and we hear how we do a lot of social media advertising. I put together strategies and talking points. So really, we have such a diverse group of businessmen and women that we can analyze any business that you're in and help you move forward.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
doing good work.
It's
That's
fun.
incredible. Yes.
It's fun.
Any particular, I don't know, trends or opportunities that you see out in the market that, I mean, just mention one, but really fires you up and gets your juices flowing?
Yeah, one of the things that's exciting for me is I'm seeing you hear a lot of millennials and people that, they're not working as hard and this and that. I totally disagree with that.
Uh-huh.
Like, I have a 30-year-old daughter, 28-year-old daughter, 25-year-old daughter. My daughters are go
Uh-huh.
get son of a guns. And I see that all across the United States. The kid in Denver,
Yeah.
I see it all the time. And so I think what's great about the United States and business here is that there are up and coming people that have unbelievable ideas. And then when I'm at Harvard, I see it from a global aspect. It makes me even smile more
Uh-huh.
because I see it globally. And so I think we have a generation that's actually coming up that is going to make change like no other. It's just at the same time, I hope that they understand that we have some issues too. And
Hmm.
some of that was brought on by our generation.
Yeah.
And so our generation has to sit here, mentor, lead, and show what's right. And some of these people that are coming up have to sit here and ride on the coattails and actually continue to make change so all of our kids and families can live a healthy life. And that's my goal.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. How about and we talk a lot on this show about like free markets, capitalism, living in our society. How, in what ways has just the free market system and capitalism benefited you in all of your ventures and passions?
Well, think about this whole talk that we've had. It's been a great conversation with you, and the questions have been great, but everything is because I have an opportunity, just like you to do whatever I want to do.
Right.
And that when you see other things across the world where sometimes people are handcuffed, so to speak, and they can't do something, and there's different cultures that don't allow certain people to do things, and here you do have an opportunity to really do whatever you want. And there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money out there if you're money driven, which I'm not. I want to make money, but that's not what drives me. But if you are money driven, it's out there. And so, Kevin talks about all the time, talks about failure.
Uh-huh.
And I love talking about failure because failure actually is what drives me to get better. And so if you ask me how many times I failed at children's home, a lot. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
thousands. And I think people who sit there and don't think that and have the mentality that what they do is great, they're tricking themselves and
Right.
or it's not true. And so I think a lot of people you're going to see in this next 3 to 5 years, what is the next Amazon going to look like? What is the next, NVIDIA, Celsius drink? There
Uh-huh.
are a lot of companies out there that are this close to breaking out, and you've never even heard of their names.
Yeah,
And I think that's fun.
right. I mean, I
Yeah.
just saw like talk about Celsius, like Ghost energy drinks just got bought by Keurig Dr. Pepper for like $3 billion. And Ghost was
Yeah.
I mean, it was a brand around, but not huge. It wasn't Celsius.
Well,
Uh,
but think about this though. When Kevin started working with Celsius, it was 12 years ago.
uh-huh,
No one, everybody thinks it's relatively new to the market.
uh-huh.
It's a new brand because it's hit the market,
Yeah,
but it's
right.
always been a brand. Like
Uh-huh.
and they've tried to build the brand. It's always been a product.
Yeah.
And so Kevin talks about, Celsius was at 9 cents a share, and then pre-split, it went to 300 a share.
Uh-huh.
And you're talking a company worth, a few $1 million to a company that's now worth in the billions.
Yeah,
And part of that was the big piece of that was branding.
right.
And the branding piece, what's crazy about it was, Flo Rida was one
Uh-huh.
of the original people who Kevin got to boost Celsius. Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian picked up Celsius and said, "Oh, this is great." Next thing you know, 2 million
Yeah,
followers are sitting there drinking Celsius.
right.
It's persistence. It is that resilience,
Yeah,
that grit, all those words I used earlier. When you have a business, you have to keep grinding and not let up, but know you're going to get your legs cut out from under you.
right.
You're going to fail,
Yeah.
but get back up and get back up. And Kevin talks a lot about, and Brandon too. They've seen businesses that have had, you know, 20, 25 products and 24 of them have failed.
Uh-huh.
But Tony Little had 300 million in sales on one item, and
Yeah,
George Foreman did 300 million and on the grill, and Jack LaLanne Juicer and all those people. You think they just came up with one item? No,
right.
they had hundreds of items that failed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's wild.
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
No, very,
very.
very good. How about just kind of looking back on your career, any particular decision or I don't know, action that you've taken that's been most pivotal or highly pivotal in your success so far?
I think at age 30, it was the tipping point for me where I really sat here and I said, you know what? If I'm ever going to be good, I need someone to help me.
Hmm.
And I really went all in with mentors. And I learned more from mentorship than um, than anything ever. And I had people push me, and like one person said, I challenge you to read a leadership book a week for a year, and I stacked them till I read a year. I did 40 different SWOT analysis on myself over a 10-year period. Every quarter I did for 10 years. And I would compare them, and I could see the change in my life as I was growing. Um, and then one of the thing that really changed my life the most is I had a mentor say, write down your top 10 things that you're great at
Uh-huh.
in business. And I'm public speaking and fundraising and blah, blah, blah. And at the bottom was grant writing, human resources, and um, this was a young age, applying finance to making decisions. So applying financials to make business decisions. I didn't fully grasp, I wasn't great at it.
Uh-huh.
So my challenge to myself was I even looked at, do I get a law degree or do I do it? And so I started in this HR studying mode. Next thing you know, for 18 months, all I read about was HR.
Uh-huh.
And then I got off of HR, and then all I did was I went to a grant writing. I went to a federal grant writing seminar. I started writing small grants. I started doing this stuff. Okay, now I knew grant writing, but I took our financials at one of the because nonprofit financials are public knowledge. Like
Uh-huh.
you can go on and look at a 990 of any. And so I asked the president of Morgan Stanley, PNC Bank. I picked five different places. And I went in and I met one-on-one with them. And I said, as a CEO and you as a board member, put yourself, let's role play here for a minute. If you're looking at these financials, put some optics on it and tell me how you read them. Like I want to know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
so I become a better CEO.
Yes.
So I started intentionally becoming better at age 30. And I'm mad at myself because I wasted 8 or 9 years.
Uh-huh.
So now I've played catch up for since, for the last 24 years. But I think those are the things that, and then I realized as I looked back that I didn't really become a good CEO till about age 40.
Okay.
And when I hit age 40, I was in my groove.
Hmm.
And I was in my groove with people, with relationships, with maturity, with everything that goes along with being a good CEO. And it wasn't just, I checked ego at the door at age 40.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I understood the power of the office, making decisions. Um, and the one thing that I can always say is that I loved all my donors and I appreciated them giving money no matter what the amount was, but I also appreciated my team.
Hmm.
And, those are the true heroes, especially frontline, that never get credit or their pat on the back. And so I'd always, I think in one of my last all, all staff meetings, I had 350 people at that meeting. And
Huh.
I said to them, and there were some rumors that I was slowing down, I was getting out. And I said, it's my job to not only take care of you, but it's a duty. It's my duty to take care of your families. And
Hmm.
it means a lot to me. And so that was something that I think about and thought about, even though there were some tough decisions to be made. I think overall, I can walk away and say that I did care, and
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, that's true leadership right there.
Yeah.
How about any advice you'd give to either young entrepreneurs just starting out, to yourself back in your 20s, or just new entrepreneurs, people that might be in a corporate world or in a nonprofit world and they're looking at starting their own thing? Any advice
Yeah.
you'd give those people?
From a product or entrepreneur side, I'll use what I just saw Kevin do with these kids at Junior Achievement in Tampa.
Uh-huh.
They were selling a product and they had like a plastic tumbler, a cup. And he goes, you need to tease, please, and seize. And he's teaching them and he's saying, you have to tease them. And he throws the cup on the ground and it makes a loud noise and the kids jumped. And he said, I got your attention now. So I teased you. And then I please him with, this cup is unbreakable. You need this cup in your office. And he goes through this whole pitch. And then now you've hooked them. Now you seize them. And now you
Huh.
seize them for the sale.
I'm
And
writing
so
that
that's
down.
tease, please, and seize.
I like
The
that.
the one thing I get questioned on all the time on nonprofits is there's a lot of people out there that want to do good, and you don't necessarily have to start your own nonprofit, but
Uh-huh.
people want to start their own nonprofit. They pop up every day. The problem with that is it just means more events. You're going after you actually could be hurting other programs by doing this.
Sure.
My thought a lot of times is I would ask people, are there current programs that are doing a better job that you can
Hmm.
do? And then you could actually be part of those programs. Because if you think that you have whatever it is it could be money, it could be relationships, it could be whatever. And you want to start a pet 501(c)(3) as an example. Well, there's 17,850 501(c)(3)s, and I'm not joking. I think that was the last number I saw.
Wow.
Let's say there's 18,000 501(c)(3)s just for pets. My question is, why does there need to be another one?
Uh-huh.
There probably, and then when it's all said and done, there's probably should only be about 200 pet 501(c)(3)s. Because if you join forces and actually, you might actually make impact, but it's
Yeah.
too diluted. It's too diluted to make impact sometimes. And so I have, maybe for another show, but I have a lot of case studies of that I was a part of where if we weren't doing something that was good, why would you continue to do it?
Yeah.
So I would give it away, and including sometimes contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And people would sit, I had a board member go, "What are you doing? That was a $500,000 contract, 486,000 to be exact." And I said, because there's 7 people in our community doing this same program, and we're not number one.
Mm.
So we can't be number one in everything.
Right.
So we had 54 total programs. If you had to rank them, the question to ask yourself is, why is something ranked 52, 53, and 54?
Uh-huh.
Right? Well, take that to a regular business. If you have 40 lines of service or even 10 lines of service, why are you, and there could be a reason. I'm not saying that it's not needed sometimes, but you have to look at some of your laggards. Why are you stuck at 10?
Uh-huh.
Why don't you focus on 4? And so those are the things that we talk about with big brand ventures.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, we take deep dives into pain points.
Yeah, and I could see just what you've done. Like if you have 7 nonprofits doing the same thing, why not merge those together potentially and
Yeah, I
really
mean,
have some mega impact joining
yeah,
forces?
think about all of the I said pets, but also remember that hospitals, most schools, colleges, churches, those are all nonprofits too.
Hmm.
So churches, as an example, how are you going to sit here in this day and age and think passing the basket is the way to make money? That doesn't work anymore. So you have to, the churches that have added music,
Hmm.
like Brandon Lake and Michael W. Smith and those types of that type of music, added online giving, added, they've come of age, so to speak. Why? It goes back to my book, because it's a business.
Uh-huh.
The other ones are going out of business, and they'll sit here and say, well, our population's aging out. Now,
Uh-huh.
actually, you've aged out of leadership. Like you don't know how to lead and scale a business, which a church is a business.
Right.
So we have very blunt conversations
Huh.
with, and those conversations need to be had. And sometimes people don't want to hear it, but I could debate. And the example I'm giving you is a real life example. I could debate that person all day and I'll never lose, because all you have to do is look at the data
Uh-huh.
and then look at the seats, a lack of people in the seats. So it speaks for itself. And sometimes a CEO or a board chair or somebody, they need to realize that they're the problem. And when you're the problem, you need to get out of the way
Hmm.
if you care. And sometimes it's good to get new leadership in there. I'm a true believer that, you don't need to be in a leadership position. I was at Children's Home before it merged, all in all, a long time, but I stepped down at age 52. I probably, if things were going well, I probably could have stayed till age 60. But think about this. If you care about the place you're working, wouldn't it be really hard to hire somebody to fill your shoes if all you've done is great fundraising and did some things like that? I'm not
Uh-huh.
saying it's not doable, but it becomes harder to hire someone. So guess what, Matt? Get out of the way,
Right.
because
Yes.
children's home's bigger than you.
Uh-huh.
And,
Right.
and that's what you have to look at sometimes.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
We talk about we're talking about mentors. So Ed Milet's one of my mentors. He's pretty close with John Maxwell. I know he talks to him about him a lot. But one thing we were talking about in the nonprofit space is a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of success professionally in their business and they have a passion, project or movement or cause on the nonprofit space, and they want to divide their time between their business and like starting a nonprofit and running it. And what Ed's advice was, you know, focus on your business and hire someone to do that nonprofit for you. So you have this engine that's creating money to fuel this, getting this thing off the ground and growing it. And maybe at some point in life, you hit the stage where you want to make the shift, but you don't need to do both at the same time. You can hire someone or a team to go over here and do
Yeah.
this nonprofit thing while you're focusing on the engine, the
Yeah.
business that's funding it in the beginning. Any thoughts on that, or what's your?
Well, Ed knows what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
right. Yeah, he's yeah,
Ed is probably one of my favorite. I've never met him. I someday want to meet him. Um,
yeah.
he's one of my idols when it comes to
Mm,
this type of business. I love that guy. But he's exactly right. Think about what he's saying. Just take it one step further. The more money you make in your business and having a healthy business, the more money that you can put into your nonprofit. That's the first thing. But the
hmm.
second thing is the more you build your business, make money and scale your business on the for-profit side over here, the more people that you're hiring that it can actually make change. And
Right.
that's where the difference comes in. So you're actually building an army
Mm,
to help make change. So he's 100% right. You have to have a healthy business, make your money first to be able to give money.
right.
Yeah, that's not even an argument to me.
Right.
But I love the idea of doing both. But I'll say this too. There could be one argument that it's time, I was just talking about it. It's time for that leader to slow down and maybe focus.
Yeah.
So, like, Kevin's all in on the for-profit side, but he knows if I make more money over here, it's going over to the nonprofit.
Uh-huh.
And as Kevin is aging, like we all do, he may sit here in the next few years and go, I am going to give more back. I am going to focus more. And guess what? I'm running his foundation right now, the Harrington Foundation, and he may want to run it someday,
Right.
which is ideal, right?
Right. Exactly.
So if you have to plan, it's no different than it's succession planning for him, for Kevin right now. But as you're doing this, think about the good that you can do by having a successful for-profit.
Hmm. No, very good.
Yeah.
And how about, danced around this, we've hit this, but just building lasting legacy. What are your thoughts of, in your own personal pursuits, how, building legacy?
I don't think of legacy a lot. I don't um I've never cared about awards or a painting on the wall or
Mhm.
a building named after you or anything like that. I don't think that's legacy. What I think legacy is that as a leader, I was around, and it doesn't matter if you're a coach, like a little league coach.
Uh-huh.
If I could impact people to become better men and women, businessmen and women, girls and boys, um, and if it can help your community, that would be the legacy.
Yes.
The legacy to me is not money and it's not ego. It's actually making change makers in your community. I had somebody, I'll give you one example. And this, I had a kid, um, he came to me probably 6, 7 years ago, and he wanted to go to law school. And he's from a small town, and odds were stacked against him. And he had the guts to ask me to mentor him. And of course, I said yes. And as he was making these decisions to go to law school, he said, I just got a $25,000 scholarship to go to, I won't say the school. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not going to ever give you advice. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Hmm.
And but why? Why would you want to go there? Like it's not very appealing. You could go over here to this school, they want you, and it's probably going to turn into more money. But just something to think about. He made the decision to go over to, he left the scholarship on the table. Long story short, just 2 weeks ago, he passed his bar. He sent pictures of his grandparents and him in his gown, and he's holding up his certificate. And he got his law degree with a focus in nonprofit law.
Huh. Huh.
So to me, I only tell you that story because I won't remember ever writing a check, or my kids won't remember writing a check. But that kid who is becoming a top attorney now will remember the impact that someone had on him to put a foot in his butt and to become a better person and become a better student and to put football aside, to know you're not playing in the NFL, to
Uh-huh.
put all of this to the side and to grind, and he did. That's more meaningful to me than anything we've talked about. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
And that would be my push and my charge to everybody listening to the show. What change are you going to make in someone's life to make them better?
Hmm.
And we all have that opportunity. It doesn't matter what age it is.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's
Very
very
cool.
cool. All right, last question.
All right.
Your personal definition of success, and you can take that in any way you want and pursue any way, any route of thinking.
Um, Success to me is to be a great dad,
Hmm.
um, to show my kids that it's okay to fail and give them the confidence. I have four daughters out of my five kids, and
Okay.
so I would always talk about girl power. As they were getting older, I would talk to them about, you know, Whitman and Barra and all these female CEOs to say, listen, those people are powerful and they can make decisions, and you can do as a female the same as a male.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that's success to me. Success is not having I don't look at it as having a long career in nonprofit and doing that, but success is when I used the power of a CEO to fight a system to make a wrong a right, and now a kid can actually hear for the first time because I put my job on the line for it. That's success. And so this kid can actually live a life who got thrown into a system with no family. He was beaten up as a kid.
Ugh.
He could not hear. He got the proper surgeries. He now has cochlear implants. He has everything he can now to become a productive tax-paying citizen
Ugh.
someday. That's success. Success is not looking at a bank account and going, I can't wait to hit 100 grand. I mean, that is what it is. That only drives me to do better on the other side.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Well, thank you, Matt. Any parting words before we hop off here?
The only thing I'd say is, I've listened to a lot of your shows, and they talk about capitalism, they talk about entrepreneurship and leadership, but I truly think that uh, if you're tasked with being a leader, take it serious because eyes are on you all the time. And when the eyes are on you, you have to do great things. And
Yeah.
that's your job. And so that's what I tell people is, you know, change if you want to change somebody's life or save someone's life, you have to do it and mean it and actually show it. And that's what I tell people all the time because we've all made mistakes we regret, and it doesn't mean we can't try to fix things that make our community better. And that's my end goal is communities. I want safe communities so my grandkids, who I'm now a grandpa, by the way, I want
Congratulations.
I want my granddaughter to grow up great.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
yes, that's a perfect way to end this.
All right.
Yes. So Matt George, the nonprofit prophet, and we'll share all your socials and all the ways
I
to
appreciate
reach
it.
out to you and the businesses in the show notes. But Matt, I really
I
sincerely want to
appreciate
thank you.
it.
This
Thank you.
was so much fun. So thank you.
You're awesome. Love it.
Oh, you
Thank you.
are.
All
Thank you.
right. See ya.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.